They called her shy, as if quiet meant empty. Then the ground answered. Sophia treated corners like shelter. In class, teachers praised her work and passed her by. Sweet, gentle, not leader material, they said. She started to believe it for a while. She avoided the spotlight not from fear, but from a rule she never questioned. The world is louder than me. The air went still. Dogs barked, birds lifted together. A glass in the cupboard trembled. On the porch with a bag of rice, she felt the boards shiver. The bag split, a white ribbon spilling. A low roar rose. Floors rolled, frames fell. For a breath, there was no up, no down. What do you reach for when everything falls? Shoes, flashlight, first aid kit. She moved before doubt could speak. A man bleeding at the curb, a child in a doorway, an old woman clutching a photo. Sophia knelt, steady. She led them to the school field. Open ground, no wires, no walls. Stay together, she said, voice clear. Where did that clarity come from? Sophia jogged back to the street. She tore a scarf and pressed it to the man's forehead. Hold this. I'll be right back, she said. Her words were simple stones laid in a path others could follow. She pressed her phone into the old woman's hand so someone could call her daughter. She flagged a neighbor with a pickup truck and loaded the injured into the back with a gentleness that felt like steel. Leadership isn't volume, it's direction. Everywhere she looked, there was chaos asking to be shaped. She climbed onto a low wall and raised her arm. If your house is standing, check your neighbors, she called out. If you're unhurt, come here. We need runners, water, blankets. Stay away from power lines. Don't go back inside. A few heads turned, then more. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through panic because it had no tremor. She pointed. You. Take this street and knock on every door. You. Start making a list of people who are here. Names and any injuries. You. Boil water if you can. We'll set up a table there. Who decided that strength has to shout? She found a whistle in her pocket, the one she used to carry for walks, and blew a short, sharp note. People focused, like a lens snapping into place. Sophia walked through the square, touching elbows, making eye contact, listening more than she spoke. A man in a neon jacket argued about where to put the supplies. She listened, nodded once, then said, "We need shade. The tents go under the big trees, food and water away from the road. You've got strength. Help me tie the tarps." He followed. She set the children in a circle and taught them a game that kept them counting and breathing. She asked the older ones to become guides for the younger ones, and in a minute the small ones were following a chain of quiet leaders, their fear replaced by the task in front of them. She asked the women who ran the local kitchen to take charge of meals. "You already feed this town," she said. "Do what you do." Smiles cracked through ash. Action rearranges doubt. By noon, the square had turned into a system. A man with a broken ankle got a splint from a former scout who hadn't tied a knot in 20 years, but remembered how when it mattered. A list of names grew on a sheet of cardboard ripped from a delivery box. Volunteers went out in pairs, then returned with updates. They used colored chalk on doorways, green check marks for safe, yellow triangles for unstable, red X for unsafe. People kept asking, "Who's in charge?" Faces turned toward Sophia. What changed? Not her. The world finally needed what she'd been holding all along. An aftershock hit, smaller but sharp. A panicked wave surged through the square. A rumor cut through it like a knife. Someone shouted that the dam had cracked, that a flood was coming. People grabbed bags and children and started toward the road. Sophia raised her whistle and blew, short, long. She lifted both arms. "Hold," she said, calm as a held breath. "Stop. Look at me." They did, even the ones with shaking hands. She pointed to the radio the shopkeeper had hauled out. "We have no warning about a flood. Stop and breathe." She made eye contact with a man with wild eyes and put her palm on his shoulder. "I know you're scared. Stay. If the dam cracks, we go uphill, not to the road." Truth, delivered steady, can pin a rumor to the ground. Afternoon bled into a dark that arrived too early. The moon climbed through a sky smudged brown. The smell of cracked earth and diesel hung heavy. Sophia's hair stuck to her forehead. Her muscles burned, but her focus stayed sharp as a blade handled so long it belonged to her hand. She watched for fainting. She watched for dehydration. She sent a pair of teenagers to refill water jugs with strict instructions not to cross the broken wall on Maple. She assigned a grandfather and his grandson to sit by the fire and take notes on supply levels. She told a friend who'd lost her home, "Stay with me." Then she gave her a job. Pain doesn't disappear if you ignore it. It eases when you carry it with people. As the night deepened, a mother ran into the square with her face lit by a phone, tears cutting tracks through dust. "My daughter," she gasped. "She hasn't come back." The girl was 10. The mother couldn't stop shaking long enough to call her name. Sophia didn't hesitate. "Tell me her shirt color, shoes, where you last saw her." The mother spoke. Sophia turned to the volunteer board and pointed. "We need 4 people. Headlamps, rope, first aid kit. Check the alley by the bakery, the school garden, the old mill path. Move slow, call her name every 10 steps. Stay in pairs. Why does pressure make some people freeze and others become a map?" They fanned into the night. Sophia took the mill path herself, her light painting the broken ground in pale gold. Owls watched, silent. The air hummed with the hum of people who had decided to be a village instead of a crowd. Somewhere, a child answered a voice with a thin, hopeful, "Here!" They found her wedged behind a fallen fence, clothes torn, ankle twisted, eyes wide. "It's okay," Sophia said, kneeling in the dirt. "You're safe now. We've got you." She splinted the ankle with 2 sticks and a strip of her own shirt, then lifted the girl gently. The child clutched her like she was the only still thing in the world. When they returned to the square, a cheer rose. Not wild, deep and grateful. The mother sobbed into Sophia's shoulder, the kind of cry that shakes years of fear loose. Sophia held her until the sobs became breaths. Then she passed the girl to the medical tent and went back to the board. When did she realize? It wasn't one moment. It was many. It was the white-haired neighbor who squeezed her hand and whispered, "We're with you." It was the teenage boy who had always laughed at her quiet, now standing guard at the supply tent because she'd asked him to. It was the woman who ran the bakery laying a hand on Sophia's back and saying, "You saved us." And Sophia thinking, "No, we saved each other," but also feeling something settle inside her like a door closing on a draft. Sometimes the truth is a mirror you only find in a storm. Days later, the ground stilled. The relief trucks arrived. The radio crackled with names of towns getting power back. The school field went from emergency shelter to community camp. The kids wrote thank you signs in crooked letters and stuck them on poles like bright birds. And Sophia kept moving, slower now, but with the same far-seeing calm. She walked the streets she'd always slipped through and saw them new. People looked up and met her eyes. They didn't call her shy. They called her by her name. She laughed once, a sound that surprised even her. She went home to a house with cracks in the plaster and dust on the windowsills, and she stood in the doorway, looking at the shoes lined up like a row of commas, the mug on the table, the plant leaning toward the light. Her hands shook then, finally, and she let them. She cried standing in her own quiet, not from fear, but from the relief of finding herself. What happens when you stop believing the small version of your story? She learned something in that echoing week that no one can take back. Quiet isn't empty. It's where focus lives. It's where you notice details others miss and carry truths others drop. It's where you build strength in layers, patience, listening, preparation. So when the world tips, you can hold it steady for the people near you. You don't have to be loud to lead. You don't have to be fearless to be brave. Courage is not a costume you put on. It's a decision you make when life asks for more. When the town held its first recovery meeting, someone pressed a microphone into her hands. She almost laughed. She looked out at faces she'd known for years and saw them seeing her. She didn't make a speech. She spoke from the same place she had when the first window shattered. "We're going to rebuild," she said, "together. Check on each other. Share what you have. Ask for what you need. Give your kids small jobs so they feel strong. If you get scared, find someone and sit with them until the fear passes. We're not alone." Have you met the part of you that wakes up when it matters? If you've ever been called too quiet, too soft, too reserved, hear this. The qualities that make you feel invisible in noisy rooms are the same ones that carry people through a storm. Your careful eyes, your steady breath, your way of paying attention. They are not weaknesses, they are anchors. They are lifelines. When crisis hits, the world needs people who can see past the panic and choose the next right action. Sophia didn't become someone else. She became herself and let us see it. The disaster didn't turn her into a hero. It cleared away the noise so the hero could step forward. That same strength lives in you. Maybe it's buried under years of comments and doubts. Maybe it's waiting for a moment to prove itself. Maybe your moment isn't an earthquake at all. Maybe it looks like sitting with a friend at 3 a.m. and refusing to leave. Maybe it's speaking up at work when it's uncomfortable. Maybe it's deciding to be kind when the room is cruel. What if your quiet is not a gap to fill, but a ground to stand on? If this story stirred something in you, share it with the quiet person in your life who might need a mirror. Tell me in the comments about a time you surprised yourself. I read them. I carry them. And if you want more stories that uncover the strength you already have, subscribe and stay close. The world doesn't always recognize soft voices, but together we can make room for them to lead.